Security pushed a fan too hard, and Michael gave the signal. 20,000 people waited to see what he'd do. The shove came fast. 1 second. A young woman in a white t-shirt was leaning over the front barricade. Her hand stretched toward the stage, fingers splayed. The next, a security guard in a black uniform, grabbed her shoulder and yanked her back. She stumbled, her knee hitting the metal rail, and the people around her gasped. The guard didn't let go. He pulled again, harder this time, and she fell sideways into the crowd. Michael saw it from center stage. He was mid-spin, the opening beat of the next song already thumping through the monitors in his ears. But his eyes caught the movement near the barricade. The spotlight was on him, the crowd roaring, the band locked in, but something in his chest tightened. He stopped moving. Just froze, 1 foot forward, his head turning toward the commotion at the front. The bassist noticed first. Michael's hand came up, palm flat, fingers spread wide. The universal signal. Stop. The band cut out. The click track went silent. 20,000 people, who'd been on their feet screaming half a second ago, felt the shift. The sound didn't disappear all at once. It rolled backward in waves, section by section, like a blanket being pulled off a bed. First the front rows, then the middle, then the back. Within 10 seconds, the arena was quiet enough to hear the hum of the PA system and the faint metallic creak of a spotlight fixture adjusting overhead. Michael didn't say anything yet. He just stood there, breathing hard, his chest rising and falling under the sequined jacket. Sweat dripped from his hairline, catching the light. The cold metal of the mic pressed against his palm, grounding him. He turned his head slowly, scanning the front section, and his gaze locked on the spot where the woman had gone down. She was back on her feet now, held up by 2 friends, her face pale, her hand pressed to her ribs. The security guard who'd grabbed her was still there, arms crossed, talking into his radio. He wasn't looking at her. He wasn't looking at Michael either. That's when Michael moved. He walked to the edge of the stage, the mic still in his hand, and crouched down. Not all the way, just enough to bring himself closer to eye level with the front row. He pointed toward the woman, then motioned to someone off stage. A moment later, Torres, the stage manager, appeared in the wings. Michael flipped the mic away from his lips and leaned toward her, speaking words only she could hear. Torres nodded once, sharp and fast, and disappeared. But here's the part you can't miss. Michael had seen this before. 3 years earlier, different city, different venue, same problem. A fan had been knocked down in a crowd surge, and by the time anyone noticed, paramedics were rushing in. Michael had kept performing that night, trusting the crew to handle it. But afterward, backstage, he'd learned the fan had been trampled, broken ribs, punctured lung, sued the venue, settled quietly. Michael had asked himself the same question every night since. What if I'd stopped? Now he had his answer. The crowd was starting to murmur. Confusion rippled through the sections. People in the back were standing on their seats, trying to see what was happening. Someone a few rows up shouted Michael's name, a questioning tone, like they were asking if everything was okay. He didn't answer. He stayed crouched at the stage edge, his eyes still on the woman, watching as 2 medics in yellow vests pushed through the crowd toward her. Torres reappeared in the wings and caught his eye. She tapped her watch. 5 minutes. She mouthed. The venue protocol. If a medical situation wasn't resolved within 5 minutes, they'd have to pause the show officially. Call it, log it, bring the house lights up. Michael straightened and brought the mic back to his lips. He let the silence stretch for another few seconds. Every eye in the building was on him. Then he spoke, his voice low and steady, amplified through every speaker in the arena. We don't do that here. 4 words. That's all he said at first, but the way he said it, calm, controlled, like he was stating a fact that couldn't be argued with, made the hair on people's arms stand up. Someone near the soundboard later said they'd never heard an arena that quiet, not before a show, not after, just quiet. Michael turned toward the side of the stage where the security guard was still standing. The guard's posture had changed. His arms weren't crossed anymore. He was looking at Michael now, and his hand had moved away from his radio. Michael pointed at him, not aggressive, not theatrical, just a single finger extended, held steady. "You," he said into the mic. "Step back." The guard didn't move at first. For a moment, it looked like he might argue, might say something into his radio, or gesture to one of the other security staff scattered along the barricade. But then Michael took a step forward, still pointing, and repeated himself. "Step back." The guard stepped back. The crowd erupted. Not in cheers. This wasn't that kind of moment. It was something else. A sharp collective intake of breath, followed by a low murmur that grew louder, like a wave building offshore. People started clapping. Slowly at first, then faster. Someone in the upper deck shouted, "Yeah," and it was picked up by others. Scattered voices across the sections, building into something that felt less like applause and more like agreement, like 20,000 people, all nodding at the same time. Michael lowered the mic and turned back toward the woman. The medics had reached her now. One of them was checking her arm, the other talking to her, his hand on her shoulder. She was nodding, wiping her eyes. Michael watched for a few more seconds, then looked back at Torres in the wings. She gave him a thumbs up. 3 minutes down. 2 to go. He nodded. But wait. Don't skip this part. Because what happened next wasn't in the script. A man in the second row, maybe 30 years old, wearing a faded tour shirt, cupped his hands around his mouth and shouted, "We got you, Mike." A ripple of voices followed. "Take your time," someone else called. "We're not going anywhere." The sentiment spread, row by row, until the entire front section was calling out support, not chanting, not screaming, just talking to him, person to person, like they were all in this together. Michael felt it. The shift, the connection. He'd performed for crowds 10 times this size, in stadiums that held 100,000 people. But this moment, standing still, no music, no choreography, just him and them in a darkened arena, this felt different. He brought the mic up again. "Everybody okay?" he asked. His tone was different now, warmer, softer, like he was talking to one person, instead of 20,000. A scattered chorus of "yeah" came back from the sections. He smiled, just a little, the corner of his mouth lifting. "You sure?" he asked. More voices this time, louder. He nodded. "All right, let's make sure it stays that way." Torres checked her watch again and gave him the signal. 4 minutes. Medical situation stable. They were clear to continue. Michael turned toward the band and gave them a nod. The drummer clicked his sticks. 1, 2, 3, 4, and the opening beat of the song kicked back in. But Michael didn't start dancing right away. He stayed at the front of the stage, his eyes still scanning the crowd, making sure. The bassist came in, then the keys, then the horns, and the sound filled the arena again, thick and warm. Only then did Michael step back, spin once, and let the music take over. But the tension didn't disappear. Not completely. You could feel it in the way people in the front rows stood a little straighter, the way they kept glancing toward the security line, like they were waiting to see if it would happen again. And Michael felt it too. Every few bars between moves he'd glance toward the barricade, checking, making sure his people were safe. The song ended, and the crowd roared. Michael took a breath, wiped his forehead with the back of his hand, and walked to the mic stand at center stage. He didn't pick it up. He just stood there for a moment, letting the applause wash over him. The faint smell of sweat and popcorn hung in the still air, mixing with the metallic tang of the stage fog. Then he lifted the lapel mic clip to his collar and spoke, his voice carrying just to the first few rows this time. Intimate. "We're all here together. We take care of each other." The applause got louder. Someone threw a bouquet of flowers onto the stage. Michael picked it up, held it to his chest for a second, then set it down gently near the monitor wedge. He looked back toward the wings, where Torres was standing with a clipboard, and she gave him a quick nod. Everything was good. The woman was okay. The medics were still with her, but she was stable, no serious injuries, just shaken up. Notice what happened here. Michael didn't wait for someone else to fix it. He didn't defer to the venue staff, or the security director, or anyone with a clipboard and a radio. He saw something wrong, and he stopped the show. Because for him, the show wasn't just the music, or the lights, or the choreography. It was the people, all of them. And if the people weren't safe, the show didn't matter. Michael turned back to the band. "Let's keep going," he said, and the next song started. But something had shifted in the room. The crowd wasn't just watching a concert anymore. They were part of something. Every person in that arena had seen what Michael did, how he stopped everything, risked the flow, the energy, the momentum of the show, because someone got hurt, and not hurt in some dramatic headline-making way, just pushed too hard by someone who was supposed to be keeping people safe. 3 songs later, during a quieter moment, a ballad, the lights dimmed to a soft blue wash. Michael walked to the edge of the stage again. The woman in the white t-shirt was still there, standing with her friends, her arm bandaged now, a medic still nearby. Michael crouched down, reached out, and touched her hand. Just for a second. He didn't say anything. Didn't need to. She nodded, tears streaming down her face, and he nodded back. Then he stood up, turned, and walked back to his mark. The spotlight flickered once, just once, and Michael's shadow doubled on the stage floor before snapping back to 1. He glanced up at the lighting rig, a silent acknowledgement to the tech crew. They were watching too. Everybody was. The rest of the show went smoothly. No more incidents, no more drama, but people didn't forget what they'd seen. After the final encore, when the lights came up and the crowd started filing out, the conversations in the aisles and the parking lots and the lobbies weren't about the set list or the dance moves or the pyro effects. They were about the moment Michael stopped, the moment he pointed at that security guard and said, "Step back," the moment he made it clear that nobody was going to treat his audience like that. One look, one breath, one decision. Later that night, backstage, Torres found Michael in the green room. He was sitting on a couch, still in his stage clothes, a towel draped over his shoulders, a bottle of water in his hand. The bass was still humming faintly in his chest, an echo of the show. She sat down next to him without saying anything at first. Then she spoke, her voice quiet. That was the right call. Michael looked at her. "Was it?" "Yeah," she said. "It was." He nodded slowly, took a sip of water, and leaned back against the couch. I saw her face," he said. "She was scared." "I know," Torres said. "Everybody saw it. That's why they clapped." Michael didn't respond right away. He just sat there, staring at the ceiling, the adrenaline from the show still humming through his veins. Finally, he said, "We can't let that happen again." "We won't," Torres said. "I already talked to the venue director. New protocols for tomorrow night. More medics on standby, better communication with security, clearer barricade zones." He wasn't happy about the pause, but he saw the reaction. "He knows we were right." Michael nodded. "Good." They sat in silence for a while. Outside the green room, the crew was breaking down the stage, the sound of cases being latched and cables being coiled drifting through the walls. Somewhere down the hall, someone laughed. Life going on, the way it always did after a show. But Michael knew this one would stick, not because of what he sang or how he moved, but because of what he stopped, because he'd drawn a line, right there in front of 20,000 people, and made it clear that some things mattered more than keeping the show running. Remember this, the moment you stop, the world stops with you. And that's exactly what happened. The woman in the white t-shirt went home that night with a story she'd tell for the rest of her life. Not about the songs or the lights, but about the moment, a global superstar stopped everything because she got hurt, because he saw her, because he cared. The security guard who pushed her. He was reassigned the next day, not fired. Michael didn't push for that, but moved to a different section, away from the barricade, with a formal note in his file. The venue implemented new training protocols within a week. Other venues on the tour heard about it and followed suit. By the end of the year, the way security handled front-row crowds at major concerts had shifted, just a little, in a direction that prioritized safety over control. And Michael? He kept doing what he always did. Performing, connecting, making sure his people were taken care of. But after that night, whenever he walked to the front of the stage, he'd pause for just a second and scan the crowd, checking, making sure. Because that's what you do when you care. You pay attention. You act. You don't wait for someone else to fix it. Look closely at what comes next, because this is where the ripple became a wave. 2 months later, a venue in another city faced a similar situation. Crowd surge, security response, potential injury. But this time the security team paused. They radioed the artist. They waited. They handled it differently. Because word had spread, because people had seen what Michael did, because a single moment in a darkened arena had become a blueprint. One signal, 20,000 witnesses, and a choice that became a standard. That's how change happens. Not in boardrooms or policy meetings, but in moments like this, when someone with a platform uses it, when someone with power shares it, when someone sees something wrong and says, simply and clearly, "We don't do that here." The arena emptied. The lights went dark. The crew finished loading the trucks, and the convoy rolled out toward the next city, the next show, the next crowd. But the memory stayed, in the minds of 20,000 people who were there, in the conversations they had with friends and family, in the way they thought about concerts, about crowds, about what it means to look out for each other. And in Michael too, because that night reminded him why he did this in the first place. Not for the fame or the records or the screams, though those mattered in their way, but for the connection, the shared experience. The knowledge that for a couple of hours, in a darkened arena, thousands of strangers became something more, a community, a family, people who looked out for each other because someone on that stage showed them how. That's the legacy. Not the songs, though the songs endure, but the moment, the choice, the signal that said, clearly, and without ambiguity, you matter, your safety matters, and I'll stop everything to make sure you're okay. 20,000 people learned that lesson in real time, and they carried it with them when they left. Some of them became better audience members, more aware of the people around them, quicker to help when someone stumbled or got overwhelmed. Some of them became better humans, period, because they'd seen what it looked like when someone with everything to lose chose people over performance, safety over spectacle, dignity over momentum. You'll want to remember this moment, not just for what happened, but for what it proved. That power doesn't have to mean control. That authority can mean protection. That the person on stage, under the lights with the mic in the platform, can use all of it to say one simple thing. I see you. You're not just a face in the crowd. You're not just a ticket sold or a seat filled. You're a person, and you matter. And Michael, he slept well that night. Not because the show had been perfect, it hadn't, but because he'd done the right thing. And sometimes, that's all you can ask for. The right thing, at the right moment, for the right reasons. One hand raised, one signal given, and everything changed.